Hi, I'm Dr. Philip Schalow, and I'm going to talk to you today about health. Um, it doesn't matter what healthcare practitioner you are. Many individuals will come into their care practitioner and want them to, um, actually, they'll kind of look like this, like a wrecked car. And some people will want to say, can you fix my gas cap? You know, it just isn't, it doesn't look right, or it's not working quite right. And the healthcare practitioner might be saying, wait a minute, but you got a few other things that aren't working right. Can we address the whole thing? And it's the same in the chiropractic world. And but what's interesting, here's another interesting little picture. There's an old hornet with weeds growing through the windows here, vines, and a busted up, twisted hood. Other things you can identify. And what we're seeing is that think this through with me. If your car was a biological system, all we would need to do is get a good spark plug in there, a good battery, and make sure that all the electrical connections are there. And then over months or even years, everything would restore itself. The paint job would be restored. The tires would be replaced. The frame would straighten out. The windows would come back together again. Well, that's not the case. We have to replace one part at a time in a car. But you are a biological system. And what that means is that if there's an interference in the communication between the brain and the body, then things break down. And it's possible to restore that too. So if you look over here on behind me, this is what we tend to see, where there's distortion. There's accidents and injuries. They tear loose the connective tissue framework in the spine, and the spine settles into a stress position. Can you see that? Can you see that stress in there? And then things start breaking down, and then pain eventually occurs. Now, we're not a pain practice. We're not into magically taking pain away, although it can happen wonderfully. But what we're doing is we're looking at the whole system. We're gonna work on the whole car. Because what's important is to first restore that communication between the brain and the body, and so that the body can restore itself. Does that make sense? How does it do that? There's a lot of elements in physiology that show us how that works. You know, the brain's in charge of suppressing pain signals coming from the lower body. But if the body is out of balance, it's going to keep triggering pain. And there's a lot of different levels that can generate pain. But the important thing is getting the spinal balance in there. Does that make sense? So when we think about health, we need to think in terms of what's the balance of your spine. I like the phrase, what's the status of your atlas? That's the important thing. The atlas is the first bone in the neck, and if it's out of position, it pinches on the brainstem and knocks out the communication. It affects neurotransmitters, it affects your endocrine system, hormones, it affects your immune system, which is a very wonderfully complex. It's a complex of different systems in the body. So there you go. And talk to me about, is your spine balanced or not?